Hello, everybody. Welcome to Eating Peace this week. Somebody just shared with me recently that the Buddha said there is a lot of work to be done. There is much work to be done. Therefore, let us proceed very slowly. And I just love that. I've heard other variations of the same type of concept and quote. And I know that when it comes to the way we've behaved with food and eating, we feel so incredibly frustrated and so furious sometimes about our own experience and the attack of the self for getting us into the situation that we'll just feel urgent and tight and like this needs to be now that something changes, now. So this seems to be the theme for the week. I've noticed it in one other Facebook Live video that I did over on my Work with Grace Facebook page, but worth sitting with longer and more in depth, even in this particular way when it comes to food and eating. Because sometimes that sense of compulsion or addiction that is like a cycle where we notice anything repetitive like that and we're just intensely wanting that to change can definitely feel like it's almost an emergency. If I don't get this under control, if I don't find help, if I don't see the scale numbers begin to go down now, I am going to completely freak out. Or I feel suicidal. I'm going to kill myself. And I don't mean to say that in kind of a dismissive, offhanded way. That's certainly the way I felt in the past. Who can live with this kind of extreme compulsive behavior that's so painful? I mean, if you stuff yourself and you feel so full and the nausea and the heaviness and the weight and not really being able to trust weight going up and down. Sometimes people have had clothing sizes in 4 or 5, different sizes. The range is huge. I know that it seems very extreme and difficult. Sometimes people have had hundreds of pounds that go up and go down. Or you might remember being heavy set in weight since you were very, very young. I find some of the eating caricatures come out differently for different people. There are the ones who will have also a great interest in self-starvation, to just do anything they can to find some kind of balance, which I definitely could relate to that. I would have the swinging side, complete opposite of full-blown starvation, not allowing myself to feel or move off that or like kind of gain some kind of intense control through just stopping altogether and be able to hold that in a kind of a strangely sense of suffering or tight way for a really long time. So that, of course, becomes the anorexic style of living. I guess I just wanted to share, that there's these different extremes. The other day I heard some people talking and I just could overhear the conversation, and somebody was saying, I wish I was anorexic. And I thought, wow, probably given any kind of a real thoughtfulness about that kind of statement, they would realize the incredible flip side of the suffering of the same suffering. It's still deep, intensive resistance to life, being against what is in the most incredible level. And it is equally as painful as holding any extra weight on. I don't care how much the extra weight is. In fact, somebody even told me that, I think this was pretty common knowledge, that anorexia itself has the highest mortality rate of any mental illness diagnosis. And of course, it's because we're actually, directing something, the lack of food. So starvation, which of course we die from. But even, beyond all the suicide that happens in mental suffering of other kinds, which is enormous. So Not a thing to wish for, of course. No wishing that I could just be completely without appetite at all, or enforcing such a rigid dictatorship against eating that I wouldn't eat and I wouldn't be able to enjoy it. What do we really want? I mean, what do we really want? Freedom, peace, surrender, a gentleness with food and eating. Like we're seeing an old friend, oh, hi, it's time for you again when it's lunchtime, when it's dinner time. The joy of spending time, intimate time with that person, that friend, that function of life that is supportive, and we're becoming one with this thing. So I thought I would just speak a bit today to the notion that something is not happening on a timeline that we want, like weight loss and how fast that needs to happen, and just spend time here with that thought process and that stressful belief in the realm of food and eating in the body. I know some people, or some of you are here listening to this, and it's not necessarily eating that's your compulsion. So I've heard of plenty of people here that are looking at other compulsions, sexual addiction or other processed behaviors where the activity or behavior is something of deep pain. And it still applies. It's this thought where everything I've had in my life so far, what's gone on in this topic, in this realm, is far beyond my wildest dreams for when I'd want this to stop. I just have been working on it, or visiting places, or gotten therapy. I can't tell you the list of what I had done in my life. EST and context trainings, and an amazing group, 9-month group at a place called People House in Denver. Inpatient hospitalization. That was a intensive one, 6-week program. And Course in Miracles and prayer and meditation, various churches and religious groups. I could tell that something felt like it was a spiritual problem, too, in a way. And not to get any kind of woo-woo way about it, but there was something that was about the gift that we're receiving of life, or my relationship with life, that felt like it had deeply to do with this food and eating and body and my compulsions and my addiction, and just what my sense was of the greater meaning for being here. So I mean that in the broadest terms of spirit. And there was something in my soul that was filled with longing and craving. I would think that's important to note, that there's a very powerful hands open or wanting and to understand, to feel peace, to feel love. We have to be believing that it is not present here, or it's not enough, or that the silence is not golden, silence is dangerous, a sense of silence, or the way life is flowing. Recently in our Eating Peace group, somebody brought me once again to the attention of Gabor Mate, who is a wonderful drug and alcohol specialist, but an addiction specialist in my neck of the woods, Vancouver, BC. And he's written some books and just done a lot of work in the field of addiction. But one thing that I really loved that he has said is that the pain, looking at the pain, which I know I mentioned already, is far more important and far more opening to awareness about what's going on here. The actual pain that drove this behavior. So whatever it was that we're thinking and believing before we get in our cars to go buy that food that we know makes us feel sick, but it just for a little while feels so soothing and good and sweet on the tongue. Could there be some kind of sweetness, some kind of comfort that we're looking for in our lives that feels like we're missing it, like it's not here, like it went away? one way to work with that is to really honor things that we have felt like that we've been through that are traumatic and very painful. And sometimes they go way back. Somebody was sharing recently in exploring this kind of work about how a thing happened in her life, like an interaction with people in her family, actually neighbors, nearby neighbors in the block that she lived in. But actually, the whole scene reminded her of something that happened when she was 10. Just as she sat with the work, who would I be without this thought? Who was I with this thought? When did that thought first ever occur to me? What does this situation that's been going on now kind of remind me of? What do I really need soothing or sweetness or comfort from? What is it about? And to see what that is, it's like giving respect in a way, honoring the pain and difficulty that's been imprinted in here in the files, that you've got as your memories. You can say, those are all in the past, it's over, I should just forget about it. I was over it for a while, so everything was fine. I don't know what's gotten over me that somehow I'm back in the middle of this obsessive eating, again, or thinking about food. Well, if that's been the case, the thing is there's something about it that's not totally peaceful. It is possible for something to have happened. That's the thing. And to genuinely heal from it, just like you have a cut on your arm and you look at it, it is possible for that thing, that cut, to heal. You might be able to always see, if it was a deep cut, the scar. You see the scar, but you aren't troubled and in pain about it. There actually is no more pain. So there's a reminder when you might not even think about it at all. I know that when I was really young, I remember vividly stepping on a rose bush that had been trimmed down to almost the base of the yard, like they do sometimes in the winter. And I stepped on it in bare feet. Now, what I was doing out there in bare feet, I'm not quite sure. But I have this vivid, incredible memory of lots and lots of blood in the middle of my foot, get sharply landing on something. And there is no scar for whatever that was. I was young enough, age 7, there's no scar on my foot. So I still remember the incident, but I don't feel the pain anymore at all. So what are moments like that in your life? What is the pain? That's the study here. And I know I've spoken over and over again about look and see if there's a powerlessness that you felt before you began to want to eat. Is there something that is there all the time, whether you're eating or not, that just when you really get down to it, you feel powerless in this certain area with certain relationships, or something from the past where you felt so powerless? And I mean, there is no way to assert anything. Something else had control over you. You were lost. You were unable to move or make a move or find balance or something in your life. Sometimes it feels that way when you're a child. So was there some kind of experience you had of trauma or violence or difficulty that was like that left you feeling powerless? It's like this little segment of life that you'd be worried about. Most of my life's fine, but if that happens, I got to watch out. Alarm, worry. And what about emptiness? Just feeling totally unsatisfied. When did you first ever feel unsatisfied? What is this? Let's study the dissatisfaction. Really deeply get into it. What do I feel dissatisfied about? What is unsatisfying here? When did that first ever occur to me that I'm not satisfied? Something's kind of missing. I'm going hungry somewhere, maybe in my very soul. And then the third realm, fear. I almost feel like that's the greatest, most pressing one of all. If you could say that there's one that's deep and pressing. Powerlessness is sort of a fearful state. But fear. Have I been surprised and shocked and frightened, scared? And what is it? What are the monsters that have frightened me in my life? What have I seen or been aware of or been confronted with all the way back into childhood that really bring a lot of anxiety up? Sometimes those kinds of experiences, they're kind of not finished. They're just believed to be true. And so it's almost like you got to kind of hold your breath, not breathe too deep. Don't relax too much because, keep I don't know, what is somebody come like a sentry out on the front of the castle needs to keep looking, scan the horizon, right? To make sure nothing comes at you that will hurt you again. These kinds of things where you have really, really deeply felt hurt, that would be the most simple way to look at it. Where am I hurt? So what does this have to do? How does this connect to the sense of urgency about wanting to heal something and get over it? Lose the weight, fix this, stop obsessing, no longer be a compulsive person, be at peace. Well, I think turning towards that, with a very open heart, with the strong heart that you actually have, with the willingness to feel the pain. And sometimes that has to be done in the presence of other people. At least it just is the way it turned out for me. It's maybe not required, but I went and found a therapy group and worked in groups, worked connected to others, so that when I felt like I didn't have words or I didn't really know what to do, there was something there for me that was kind of holding a process that was holding me up and helping care for this work. And all those things that I mentioned at the beginning that I did, all those kinds of therapies and orientations and modalities and programs and retreats and workshops, all of them contributed, or else I wouldn't have been doing them. They were all really beautiful ways that people had of offering to life, knowing that there was hurt and pain there. There was suffering. And, I find that the human race is really incredibly kind and very, very interested in helping others with suffering. Let's help us. We also want to help ourselves with suffering. Of course, that's why we're here. So just maybe turning towards that, it may be that the reason this has lasted as long as it has is that there's a lot of unspent energy, kind of wild energy in there that isn't quite know where to express itself. And it's in the back of the mind, kind of in the unconscious, kind of in your memory files, and maybe not even super clear where I've been hurt. It's really powerful to take a look. I really love the notion that I've heard Byron Katie speak to, which is I didn't let go of my thoughts, my compulsive thoughts about eating, food, the body image, stressful thoughts. I didn't make myself let go of them. I just questioned them, and they let go of me. I think this is sort of what it would feel like from that Buddhist saying, let's proceed slowly. Let's proceed slowly, and let's maybe, open the curtain wider and wider to see what it is that was going on in any moment, this pattern or habit that I have of reaching and wanting. So I know that ultimately it is more peaceful to not overconsume and to not starve yourself and to not control every single bite that goes into your mouth. It is very, very peaceful to live, in a relaxed way, in an open-minded and open-hearted way towards what is. So if you'd like a great challenge or a great, really quite a large invitation, kind of a big one, look at where you've been hurt. Just identify them, journal on it, and then start at the top on the very first number one. See how far back it goes, and begin to write your stressful beliefs about that situation. Form it into a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet and begin to take it through the 4 questions and the turnarounds one by one, proceeding slowly. I really have found that the greater the depth, it's like drilling deeply, 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 way down into the earth, way down into your soul and your heart, will be very thorough. And you will find more freedom and awareness with that kind of approach. So just allowing everything to be taking as long as it takes. It's not really us that's in charge, you know? I notice I want to be the one saying how long something takes, and it needs to be done now. But maybe you're not the one that's running this ship. I certainly know I'm not. And there can be a great freedom in relaxing with that and trusting that life is unfolding at the pace necessary, just right for your awareness and deep learning. And to love yourself the whole time. Bring love, bring compassion. It's okay that you haven't healed before this moment now. That can be a great starting point before you begin a deeper work on where you've been hurt. You can just say today, at this moment, it is totally fine that I have gone through all that I've gone through, that I've repeatedly eaten what I've eaten, that I've done with food whatever I've done with food in my life. It is okay that that's happened. Here I am now, still alive, still breathing, still ready, still with the possibility of learning more about this today, still ready with a mind that can find peace in this situation, still able to notice that there might be peace present right here, even if it's just the quiet or the floor supporting you or the chair you're sitting in supporting you. Everything very simple. It's okay to proceed slowly. All right. Let me know how it goes.